Hey everyone!
Hey, and welcome to After Hours here at Linda's Electric Quilters.
Yay!
Oh, no whoop whoops.
No
We're moving from the
whoops.
whoop whoops. Okay, all right, we'll work with that. This evening we have a great episode planned out for you. We are going to be taking a look at the fourth block in the traditional block package that we have here. So the block that we're going to be looking at is this one right here. And from first glance of this block, sometimes you're trying to figure out how you're going to break it apart to quilt it. And that's what we're going to help you do tonight, kind of show you where those lines are that you can break this block apart so you can make it easier for you to quilt it.
Yeah, super fun, super good, freehand, simple ideas, especially for those beginners that just don't know how to break that apart or what they need to do, or just to give them ideas, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
We always have fun doing some freehand on some of these blocks. We have them in a package that you can get to try out, but yeah, I can't wait to get block 4 going.
All right, so let's head over to the machine and take a look.
All right, let's go.
So looking at this block, the first thing that we're going to start off with is doing the background quilting in these white. We have a triangle and then this rectangle section. And I am going to pull some design inspiration from the Designs with Lines Backgrounds, Designs and Shapes by Pam Clark. And I'm going to go to page 14. And on page 14, I found this little daisy flower leaf background piece here, and I'm going to separate these into two different design elements to kind of give the block a little bit more interest. So in the triangle portions of the background, we're going to be doing leaves, and in the rectangle portion of the background, we're going to be doing flowers. So let's take our chalk pencil, and we'll use a light gray one since we're on light color fabric, and kind of draw out how we're going to do this. So I'll start here in the bottom left corner of my triangle. And I am going to take my chalk pencil and kind of just give a little bit of a draw on. I know it might be a little harder for you to see on camera, but kind of drawing this on. And I'm going to come in with a stem first, and then I'll make my leaf around that. Like I said, I know it's probably a little harder for you to see on camera, but having that chalk pencil, you can kind of map out where you want to go with your design so you don't get lost. And if you do, you can always, of course, work from there. And then so we'll kind of work in this section here from point to point of this triangle, and then when we move into this rectangle portion, we're going to come in, and the way this daisy is formed is you come in with a little bit of a circle, and then you build your petals onto that, and then you move out from where you stopped to go and make another circle. So let's start with that background portion first. So I'm going to come over here to the bottom left section, take a single stitch to pull up my thread. And I'm going to take a few more single stitches to tie off. And now we just get to get going. We're going to be on a stitch regulated 12 stitches per inch. So I'm going to come in, make a stem first, back up, and then make a leaf. And then I'm going to go make another stem, back up, make a leaf. I can come up here, make a little stem, back up, make a leaf. And you can kind of move around and you'll do this. So make a stem, back up, make a leaf. And then I'm going to move this little piece of lint. We have that happen sometimes. Come over here, stem, back up, make a leaf. Stem, back up, make a leaf. And I'm missing a nice little portion over here, so I'm going to move over here real quick. Stem, back up, make a leaf. And then we can kind of go through this same stem right there. Stem, back up, make a leaf. And then we'll ease into that next point. So we'd be stopping at our next point here, and then we would move into our rectangle. So remember, we're going to go in and start with a circle and then build from that. So we'll start it up. A little bit of a circle, and then petal, 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 finish off our petal, and then from that ending point, move out of that, and you can go wherever you want, make another circle, petal, petal, and you're working on it now. See, we still have some more petals to do here. We kind of went in on one side, and we still have probably 2 petals to put in. It's okay to cross over that travel line that you made, because it's going to make it look a little bit more natural. So I come over here, come to this section, circle, petal, petal. And you're going to build on this all the way through. A nice fun, easy, quick background fill, especially if you're working on any springtime, maybe Easter fabric. Add these little cute pebble daisies that we've got here. And let's throw one more up here. So this one will be a tiny one. So tiny pearl, petal, petal, petal. Put a petal out there. Now I'm going backwards on this one to fill in that section. And maybe just put a little loop into that one. So now we're at the point to point of this section. We're kind of crossing over to keep this stitching continuous. Now that we have this section done, let's bounce back over into our triangle where we were doing our leaves. So we'll come up, do a stem, back up, and then do a leaf. Come up, do a stem, back up, do a leaf. Let's cross over, come up here, do a stem, back up, do a leaf, do a stem, back up, and a leaf. That was kind of more of a geometric leaf, but that's okay. And if you don't back right over your stem, that's okay. It kind of makes the leaf look even a little bit more natural. And we'll add one here, so back up. And you would stop there and you would continue working around this all in your background section. So once your background is quilted, that has tacked down the block enough to where you can come in and do these other portions. So what we're going to do is pull up our bobbin thread and trim our threads away. And I'm going to come in and start on these other portions. Now, what you could have done here, speaking of stitching continuously, you could have done this triangle and then moved in to this red portion, this red rectangle, this red triangle, and then continued back out into your background quilting. Or if you wanted to do them as separate pieces, you can do that as well. It's completely up to you. We missed this portion here from stitching continuously, so I'm going to show you how you can add into that or kind of make up for that if that happens. So we're going to start on this portion here. So back down, same point where we started, we're going to start again here. And we're going to move in and work in this blue portion. And to keep it stitching continuously, we're going to do the red portion as well. I want you to take a straight edge ruler, if you have one, and break these blue parts into triangles. That's really all they are. That's where the natural seam line would be anyway. So I'm going to take my straight edge, line that up, and just use a chalk pencil to give myself kind of some boundaries to follow. So I'll put that one there, and you would do this all the way around your block. So now you kind of have a portion to stay in. And this blue section kind of represents, to me, a pinwheel. So to give it some movement and to keep with more of the flower leafy theme, I'm going to throw in some feathers in these triangles. So starting here, I would come in and I would draw my feather, and we're just going to come back deep down into that. And you're just traveling up and back, up and back, up and back. And you're using that chalk line that you drew as that kind of barrier to stop that feather, so you don't end up moving into the the other triangle on accident. There, here, here, and do one tiny little one, and we're going to end right here at this portion. So to keep it stitching continuously, we're going to do continuous curve in here. So we're going to come through this nice little arc to here, add a little bit of interest to the continuous curve just so it's not so basic. You can drop down, add in a texture dot, so a really, really dense dot, bounce back up, continuous curve down, continuous curve here. That's going to fill in this section. We're still stitching continuously. You would take your straight edge ruler and do some stitch in the ditch along this line here. So we would do stitch in the ditch, and then that would start back up our feathers again for this portion here. So we're going to take that, and you could then do your feathers again around this section, remembering to watch out for that chalk line that you drew to have that natural barrier. We're not stitching that natural barrier, we're just keeping an eye on it so we don't accidentally stitch into that portion. So let's get working on that. So I'm going to come over here and I will pull up my threads. If you plan on using rulers, make sure you have a ruler plate or ruler base on to keep it nice and flat. Couple of single stitches to tie off like always. And then we can start up stitching as well. So here we go. And you don't have to follow directly on what you drew for your chalk line. That was just a visual. Remember to observe the barrier that you drew. And we're just going to work through this all the way. Remember to observe that little barrier. One little tiny one. We're going to bounce to this point. Remember, we're stitching continuously, so we're going to bounce down with a curve up to the point and drop down. And you're going to do a texture dot, which is a lot of stitching over itself. Back up, down into a curve, just like that. And from here, this is when we would do our stitch in the ditch. So we would take our straight edge ruler, and y'all know I love my 4x8 ruler, it's my favorite. And I would line that up with where I need to go. And I would do my stitch in the ditch, and you can do that nice and slow. You don't have to do stitch in the ditch fast at all. Until you get to that corner, you can stop, take that away, and then you'll grab your machine and you'll start your feathers again. So you're building those feathers all the way around. Watching out for that barrier that you don't cross into those other ones that you've already done. And observing that center square that you've got as well. Coming around, adding a little tiny one, and then you would come in and do the remaining portion of your triangle. So let's go ahead and do that again. So remember, you're dropping down to here. Oh, let's grab the white pencil. There we go. Dropping down to here, bouncing down. A lot of stitching for that texture dot. Come right back, curve, curve, and then stitch in the ditch down that way. So we're going to drop down to that point, and then you're going to drop down. Remember to do a lot of stitching. You can go in circles to kind of create a little spiral. A lot of stitching for that texture dot. Drop back over, curve down, curve back, and then you would take your straight edge ruler and you could do your stitch in the ditch back to that point. So I'll finish that off there. So we'll take our straight edge and do our stitch in the ditch right back to that portion. And once you get to there, then you would continue on with your feather work. So we're only doing this portion of the blog, this kind of half of it, but you're building on those ideas to work continuously around this entire block. One thing to note, once you're done over here on this section, go ahead and finish off your stitch in the ditch back to the starting point. That way it looks continuous and cohesive on the back of the quilt. Because every other portion is going to have a stitch in the ditch line, where this one will not if you don't, when you stop here, if you don't finish all the way through and stop exactly where you started. So always remember that if you're doing any type of stitch in the ditch, try to finish it off properly so on the back of the quilt it looks like you meant to do it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my thread from this section here. And go back, and then we'll finish off in the center portion. Drop over the side. And remember, any of your questions are being answered in the feed by our team while this video is playing. So make sure to double check that feed if you're asking questions in there. So in the center portion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some design inspiration from the first block we did, I believe, in the series, maybe the second. In this square, I'm going to take my spiderweb stencil, 2961, the stencil. And I like the spiderweb because it has additional lines more than the basic 8 does. So I'm going to line up the 4 corners of this block. Remember, label side is always down on your stencil. And I'm going to take my pounce powder, give it a nice hit. Take that, let me back the machine up a little bit, there we go. And just give it a nice brushing overall, and that was probably a little bit more than I needed to, but that's okay. Well, hey, you can really see it. So you can always brush that off, or you can kind of blow some of the chalk off, so I can do that. and that kind of gives me a little bit of that chalk away. Another tip, if you don't remember, you can also spray a little light mist of water or best press to keep your chalk stable while you're quilting, and then it either is going to brush away or wash away once you throw that quilt in there. So we're going to start in the center of this section, and what we're going to do is a really tight, pointed, kind of continuous curve spiral around this. So I'll start right here in the center, and I'm going to work towards a point. So I'm going to kind of go in with a curve. Let's start over here to this point, back out, and then go back in. It's going to cross over that line, but you're going to the next point of your spider web. So point, back into the center, point, into the center, point. And you're going to work your way around this section. It's going to kind of give a little bit of a flower look to mimic the flowers we have in the background, but it will be tight and pointy to kind of break up the curve that we have in the feather. So what we're going to do is start in the center, take a single stitch, pull up our thread. We're going to tie off, so a bunch of single stitches there. And then we're going to start and come down to this bottom right point. So we'll start it up and let's go. So point, back into the center, and then you'll cross over that line and come to the point of your next spider web. Point, 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 point. And if you say it kind of in your head, or you can say it out loud even in your studio, point, point, point. It kind of gets you to where you need to be, and you keep that same continuous motion. And you know to kind of stop for a second and hesitate to make a nice sharp point. So point, come down. I'm going to pause real quick to trim my threads, get them out of the way, and then we'll start it back up again. Point, point, point. And I've got my hand on the quilt here, kind of giving it stability and keep that chalk from bouncing everywhere since I didn't spray anything down. Point, point, point. I got one left. Point, and point. So we can stop that. I will tie off my threads. So a couple of single stitches to lock it down. And then I can push the machine away, come back, one more single stitch, back away, and trim my threads, just like that. So I could come in with my brush, or I'm just going to use my hand right now so you can see it a little bit better. But we have that section there. I can kind of erase these chalk lines so you have a better idea of how those feathers are looking. But just some of those simple little techniques on how to break apart a block that looks really complicated, but turns out really, really beautiful once you kind of sit down and figure out where those natural lines are, where you need to kind of drop those barriers at, will really, really kind of help you, either from a beginner or an advanced standpoint. You know, getting other people's kind of take on a few different things never hurts, just to kind of expand your design library. So move all my eraser marks off out of the way, and that's that half of the block. But of course you would do that around the whole thing, and you would have this block finished out in no time. So let's head back over to the studio and get some final thoughts.
Well, that was fun, Corey.
I do have to say, there was no commentary from you this time. Well, why no commentary?
You know, I was just like watching it. Sometimes I think they just want to see how it's done. They don't need my commentary.
I think your commentary is great.
I like how you was, you know, the continuous stitch. I think it's important to show people that it's okay to go back into that ditch and do that continuous stitch to stop from having to pull up each time.
Saves time.
Saves a lot of time.
Saves a lot of time.
You did a great job. I like, and you got that half done, and then you just take that same idea and then put it on the other half.
Definitely. And we looked on, again, page 14 of the Backgrounds Designs book, but there are a ton of different background designs in here.
Yes.
And background quilting's never been easier with this.
Exactly.
So having those different designs and be able to move through that block and break it apart easily was just amazing. I can't wait to go finish it up.
Awesome. I can't wait to do block 5. That was fun.
Oh, so maybe you're going to do block 5.
Well, maybe I'll do some of it.
We'll see. Alrighty, well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and we will see you tomorrow morning for Good Morning LEQ. Bye.